This is Ethan, and I'm here with Dave, and together we are Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 245-inch.
On this episode, we interview musician Joel Peskin, who's been featured on Weird Al's polkas since 1984.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
It's a podcast about Weird Al.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Seriously, the whole podcast is about Weird Al.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
You don't have to listen, but we're glad you are.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Hey Dave, we're back!
Ethan, are you recovered yet?
Oh, from my crazy work travel schedule these past couple weeks? No, I don't think so.
No, I don't mean that. I mean from ticket buying mania.
Oh, geez, that was crazy. You and I were on the phone, and I was literally buying tickets as I was boarding a plane, and they were closing the plane doors.
Yikes. Well, we had a crazy week a few weeks ago with Weird Al announcing his 2025 tour, and then the pre-sale tickets going on sale for most venues less than 24 hours later.
And as soon as that tour schedule dropped, Dave, we were on the phone for 5 or 6 hours, or maybe even more, just strategizing and planning our entire summer next year.
And then we recorded an entire centimeter bonus episode about the 2025 tour.
And then we got up the next morning and started buying tickets, despite the fact that I had an early flight.
You know, it was probably the craziest 24 to 30 hours I've had in my entire life.
Well, now that the dust has settled, luckily looking back, we were able to get tickets for all the shows that we intend to attend, or at least the ones that were already on sale. And now all we need to do is patiently wait until June of 2025.
Yeah, patiently wait. Easier said than done.
Well, here's one way that we can pass some of the time. It's time for what's happening in Weird Al related news.
Well, if for some reason you haven't seen the huge, gigantic news yet, that's right, Weird Al will be touring again in 2025.
It's the Bigger and Weirder 2025 tour, and it's expected to hit 65 cities for a total of 70 shows from June through September of next year.
The tour will take them to many cool venues, including Madison Square Garden in New York City, the Forum in Los Angeles, and Red Rocks, among others. Plus, the opening act will be the great Puddle's Pity Party.
We know that Weird Al's core band of John Bermuda Schwartz, Steve J, Jim Kima West, and Ruben Valtierra will all be returning, along with 4 additional players.
Now, 2 of those 4 new players have publicly announced their involvement. First up is the incredible Monique Donnelly, who has recorded with Weird Al many times, was a fixture on the Strings Attached tour, and, most importantly, a past guest and friend of Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
And the other confirmed player to be joining the tour is Peyton Rose Velligan. She's a talented 23-year-old singer, bassist, guitarist, and pianist who regularly tours with her own groups and with talent from the likes of the band Boston and other nationally touring acts.
How very cool! Well, we highly recommend that you check out the first episode of our brand new, bigger and weirder and longer bonus episode series to hear our immediate reactions and thoughts on the new tour, which we recorded on the day the tour dates were announced.
Tickets and VIP upgrades are on sale already for most of the venues, so head over to WeirdAl.com to see the full schedule and more.
But act quickly, some of the VIPs have already sold out, and at least one show is listed as sold out on WeirdAl.com, and others appear to be sold out as well.
Weird Al makes an appearance on episode 3 of the brand new Roku channel original series, The Charlie Puth Show.
The episode is titled Weirdo, the Charlie Puth Story, and in it, Charlie Puth stalks Al and hopes that he'll parody one of Charlie's tracks.
You can check it out for free right now over at therokuchannel.com.
And we don't think it's too much of a spoiler to share this because you can see in the thumbnail image on the website, but our very own Gill and Chill pillows, available now over at shop.2000inch.com, make a guest appearance on the episode too.
And furthermore, our very own close personal friend, Jeff Nucera, worked on this whole series, appeared in the series, and even shared some great behind-the-scenes photos over at group.2000inch.com, so you better be sure to check those out as well.
And the Middle-Aged Dad Jam Band is at it again, once again collaborating with Weird Al on a cover version of Billy Joel's Vienna.
They've recorded a video featuring Weird Al performing the song, and it's available to watch on the Middle-Aged Dad Jam Band YouTube and social media channels.
And Weird Al made yet another appearance on The Simpsons, albeit this time in a non-speaking role.
On the recent season 36 premiere, Weird Al can be seen exiting a limo at the Dolby Mucinex Theater in Hollywood to watch the premiere of the series finale of The Simpsons.
Now, interestingly, the Dolby Mucinex Theater is an obvious reference to the real Dolby Theater in Hollywood, which just happens to be more or less directly across the street from Weird Al's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
We can only imagine that the animated Weird Al must have stopped by his star after watching the series finale of The Simpsons during the premiere of The Simpsons.
And finally, in what's happening in Weird Al related news, the new album from the Linda Lindas called No Obligation officially releases this Friday, October 11th.
Weird Al appears on the track Yo Me Estreso playing accordion and in the video for that song.
Ethan and I have already received one of the many album variants early, and we can't wait to receive the rest of them for our collections.
This episode is brought to you in part by Vegan Burrito Restaurant, Burrito home of the 2-pound double wrapped in a quesadilla, burrito, and Wizard Burger in Albany, New York. Come on down to Burrito and Burrito, your Burrito and Wizard Burger for mouth-watering, loaded, dare I say beefy, vegan burgers. From Albany to Uranus, Burrito and Wizard Burger. Feed the hungry with out-of-this-world, plant-based, real food, always vegan style. Visit burritosquare.com and wizardburger.com to order ahead.
And now let's check out what's happening in Everything Celebrities Do is Fascinating related news.
Weird Al and Suzanne Yankovic were spotted among the celebrities attending the recent Children's Hospital Los Angeles 2024 gala.
Fascinating!
Les Claypool shared a picture on his social media of him jamming with Peter Asher, Eric Idle, Puddles Pity Party, and Weird Al.
Fascinating!
And now it's time for What's Happening in Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast related news.
The Weird Algorithm podcast has finally released their long-awaited episode that we recorded with them live at San Diego Comic-Con.
If you recall, we joined hosts Matt Kelly and Matthew Milligan along with Joey Slater and our very own Jackie Rossi and Jeff Nucera to discuss Weird Al's top television-related songs.
We had so much fun recording that episode and are glad that everyone finally gets to hear it.
Also, be sure to also check out their recent episode where Dave and I joined them to discuss phony calls.
You can listen to both episodes now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to look out for the video from San Diego Comic-Con as well.
Friend of the podcast, Jill Hinton, recently had some more work done on her impressive Weird Al sleeve tattoo.
One of the highlights of her pretty stinking majestic tattoo is her homage to Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast with our very own podcast logo.
That's right, Jill has inked our logo on her arm for all eternity.
Come on, step it up, people. Let's see your Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast tattoos.
She shared pictures over at group.2000inch.com of the completed design and additional progress that she's made.
Also, if you haven't done so yet, check out Bigger and Weirder and Longer, bonus episode 1 centimeter and headline news special report number 15 to hear more of our coverage on Weird Al's upcoming 2025 tour.
You can check out both episodes right now wherever fine podcasts are listened to. And now it's time for our interview with someone Weird Al has been working with for the past 40 years. Take it away, Dave.
Our guest this episode is the legendary saxophone and clarinet player who not only played on just about every Weird Al polka medley to date, but he's also toured with Barbra Streisand and the Beach Boys, and you've heard him on Entertainment Tonight, American Idol, Dancing with the Stars, and literally hundreds of features films, TV shows, and commercials.
Kokomo by the Beach Boys.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you about that. Our next guest is Joel Peskin. Welcome, Joel.
Thank you. That's my biggest one.
Yeah, Kokomo. Well, let's jump into it. I mean, you worked with the Beach Boys like right off the bat. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
That was kind of my first big gig because I was playing in New York when I was about 18, 19, and I was just playing jazz. I went to the High School of Performing Arts for music, art, and drama. Music, dance, and drama. And then I didn't pass the audition for Manhattan School of Music or Juilliard, and I was playing in a band, a big band with Randy Brecker, who is the brother of Michael Brecker, one of the most renowned sax players in the world. And the Beach Boys were coming into town to do an East Coast tour in late 68, 69 of the East Coast for 10 days, and then they were going to go to Europe. So they reached out to this big band leader, George Andrews, who used to do arranging for Bob Crew and all of these old Columbia record. I say old, they were like the late 60s, early 70s. So the leader of the band recommended me, a trumpet player, Steve Medeo, who wound up playing with Stevie Wonder on all Superstition, all of that, and on with the Rolling Stones. A trumpet player that I recommended. He played with Eddie Palmieri and all the Latin bands. He went to Music and Art and played trumpet and congas, but on that one, he played trumpet, a baritone sax, which is a big sax. He was a manager of C Train, which was kind of a popular group. I had a lot of records out in the early 70s. And that was our 5-man horn section. And we did a tour, and never did I ever play for 20, 30,000 people. You know, it was a big thing. And I was a hippie, full hippie, long hair, beard, mustache. And right away when we got on the tour, I met the drummer, Mike Kowalski, and he used to hear me practice in the showers because I used to play flute with the Beach Boys, and I'm on a couple of videos that start with the flute on Forever, which Dennis Wilson wrote and recorded. And so what happened was he heard me and liked the way I played. I used to warm up in the showers because we did like some concerts that had big bathrooms, like in a kind of a small arena or whatever.
Yeah.
So that I know he had a record deal with a producer in England that had some famous groups, Beverly and Drawn, the Fairport Convention, the Incredible String Band, and him and the guitar player with the bass player with the Beach Boys. So they were hooked up. They meet me, and they say, you know, this guy, Joel Peskin, could be good to go to England to do a record. And it was supposed to be like Santana, like Latin guys meet the surfers in Malibu. The only thing is we never played together. So, you know, Santana played together. So they had a repertoire and a groove. So I did the 10-day tour. It was amazing. I remember we played in Boston at the Music Box, and me and Mike just hit it off. We were like brothers. And he was a fantastic drummer. And he was on the gig because Dennis Wilson had problems, you know, with girls, fans. He was very rowdy. He used to kind of bump cars, the rental cars. He was at a kind of, so they had to have a spare drummer in case he didn't show up or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
The Captain and Tennille, they were on some of the gigs. And I remember Daryl Dragon, he was from the Captain with Captain and Tennille. So then I wound up going to England. The record never came out. And then I came back to New York, met a nurse's aide who soon became my wife. And then I came back to California, and I worked in California with Albert Collins was my first big blues gig, and with the Beach Boys from about 70 to 72. I toured with them.
Incredible.
And then they got rid of the horn section because their popularity was kind of down in the early 70s, with the Beatles and the Stones and the change of music. They weren't like a hard rock, type of band. And that was it. I got a phone call and they let the horns go. But they had different horn sections throughout the years, including now. They have one sax player. So that's how that whole thing started and changed my outlook. And I just moved to California dreaming,
I love it.
I had to say a song, that would be it.
Joel, you've worked with a lot of incredible people, and obviously the one that we are most interested to hear about is Weird Al Yankovic. You've been recording with Weird Al for over 40 years, which is an incredible accomplishment. How did you first come to work with him?
So in the nutshell, I was poor until I started to meet some composers. And they were writing, and they went to school at UCLA, and I started to tour a little bit more. And then I was settling down more in LA and kind of learning how to play different instruments. I started on the clarinet when I was 9 years old in the fourth grade, and I was good at it. Then I was really good sax player, so I had two good doubles, as they say, including other instruments like the flute and all of that. So I kept on doing demos and sessions, and I finally got into doing a lot of studio work. By 79, I did a bunch of movies, Police Squad, serials. I did Knots Landing, hundreds of movies, TV shows, all the way up. And my name, from doing Entertainment Tonight was a big platform, because the guy that wrote the music was friends with my friend, and he said, "I want you to arrange this music my brother or nephew wrote on the piano, da 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 da," and my friend Andy Buson transcribed the whole thing, including all the licks, and I have it all because I just did a 40th anniversary at the Hilton out here for the crew and the producers of Entertainment Tonight. And my original Beach Boy friend knew Ronald Luxemburg, who was a big record producer, and Peskin, he's around, and it happened to be in the Valley, San Fernando Valley. So when I played that mouthpiece, that's the purpose. I use it on that theme. Everybody bought it, and there it was up until even Kokomo, which was about 1988. But in 1987, the Beach Boys did that Kokomo. They had that song for the movie, with the Tom Hanks movie, and it got in the movie and became a big hit. And right about that time, I believe the Scotti brothers, who were these producers that were kind of related with Al, they had a studio on Santa Monica Boulevard. And I remember the engineer. Have you ever interviewed Tony Papa, the engineer?
Not yet. We'd love to.
So I hope he's around, so you never know these days.
As far as we know, he is.
Yeah, that's good. Say hello. So anyway, I got recommended because I was doing sessions for the Scotti brothers, and they were like, I don't know if they were mobsters, but they had a lot of Robert Tepper. They had the guy that did Eye of the Tiger. So they had a studio, and all of a sudden, they probably said, well, Peskin does a lot of work. Do you play clarinet? And I remember Al had the same manager who I emailed about the payment and a different company. And Tony, or the manager, what's the manager's name? I can't remember.
Jay Levy. Jay
Levy called me and said, do you want to do a session? And it was Tony Papa, because I have some old pictures of us, three of us in the studio. But the first album was even way before, when he was kind of doing the Michael Jackson Takeoff or whatever, back in 85, I believe.
Yeah, the first album I believe you worked with Weird Al was called Weird Al Yankovic in 3D, and the song was Polkas on 45.
And I have the gold record hanging in my room. I got some from him, cool. And some I had made.
Love it.
I wanted to show off to my family. I'm only kidding. So I'm just saying. So he got me on the clarinet. I did the polka, 2 parts, and some of it was really difficult because it was very fast. Not that polkas aren't, but I wound up doing it, and it went big, went gold or whatever. Then he was on them, but that's all I did was the polka, nothing else.
Right.
So no other tracks on the record. Then he called me again and again and again, till just about every record until he wasn't doing albums, which the last couple, he did that one that was named after an old politician. What was that? It was a Broadway play.
Oh, yeah, Hamilton Polka.
The Hamilton Polka, yeah.
Hamilton Polka, yeah. We can't forget the Hamilton Polka. So, so that was it. And he was always, I recorded with him all over town. One was out here. One looked like it was in a school. I don't remember. Someone had a room in a kind of a different looking building. Some of them were on the west side, on Sunset Sound. And then I hadn't heard from him for about 8-9 years, because I think the money, the popular, whatever, everything has cycles. And then all of a sudden I got an email about 3-4 months ago wanting to know. And he said, this is the first project he's worked on if I wanted to do this upcoming polka. And I said, sure. So then, he sent me some music and some other people. And it was the producer engineer must have done a lot of hit records too. It was at his house up above Sherman Oaks in the hills, and it was a very elaborate home studio, had drums. I think he was a drummer. And Al sent me the parts, and then I started practicing with it. Then he sent me a chart. He sent me a track, and that was it in both keys because he wanted a harmony. Actually, not in both keys. And I wound up going down there and banging it out. Wow. And, he's easy to work for, but he knows what he wants, and I'm on my best creative behavior. I'm on and I talk a lot. So I was all ears. And it was great seeing him. And he just said, this is the first recording, at least of a polka medley in 9 years. I couldn't believe it because I was doing Dancing with the Stars for the whole time. And then I got fired because they were trimming down the band, and me and the violinist were fired. No one liked that move because I was kind of a featured soloist. Mm-hmm. And then I wound up starting a mouthpiece company because I was always selling stuff since I was a kid. I'm like a walking pawn shop on top of everything else. For real. I sold everybody's equipment in LA, you name it. Composers, engineers, microphones, coats, jackets, cars, trucks. That's how I made extra money. So nothing for Weird Al. And so I started this company and it kind of built up and built up. So I stopped doing studio work completely. The reason I don't want to get into politics, but I was not going to get vaccinated no matter what. And I just heard stuff in the beginning, and I felt, well, there's other things, and maybe I'll behave. So everything got locked down, and I just said, I don't want to have to go. I would get a COVID. To do studio work, you had to get a COVID test.
Right.
And then if you had to do another session, you couldn't use the COVID test from one. So my friend, I won't mention his name, he got 240 COVID tests. That's how much he worked. And they pay $200 a piece. They were paying you $200. So Right when that lockdown started, and it was scary. You don't know if there was a lot of bad people. That's my opinion, and I'm not being political. You can think what you want, but I'm not getting it. Neither did most of my family. And I know some people that did, and they were sorry. And then I got rusty. I wasn't doing the sessions anyway. And then I don't want to have to go get all of the tests. And then even some were kind of making it like, for other trades, if you don't get it, you're not going to work. So I figured, you know what? And I've devoted all my time to working this business out of my house because I'm really good with inventing and creating. My partner's a great saxophonist that played with Herbie Hancock and Freddie Hubbard and the Steely Dan. And we started this little company, and it started to blossom, and I got away from doing sessions, and there's so much traffic too. I'm just saying, you get up for a 9 o'clock session, you have to leave 3 hours early. So I got burnt out. I'm 76 years old. I did it for like 30, 40 years, since I was about 30 something,
Wow.
So and you know, a lot of them pay residuals, and there's a lot of good union perks that we had. And some guys are still working, like the guy that got all of those tests. He's probably up to 300 now. I don't think they asked you for it. So then it was joy. So now, you know, it was funny because I already bought a computer, another computer, a little Mac Mini with M1 chips, and I set up my studio again because I have a little home studio, and I had records out. They didn't do much, you know, and you have to have a lot of money or a label with promotion and the whole thing. So I fired up my studio with my friend's son, who was always my engineer, and I'm working on stuff, you know, with a few people that are pretty well known.
Cool.
That I've had tracks. So I'm kind of getting back into the music because of the business is starting to get, can I have my money back? You know, I don't like the way this, it's like there's always something and shipping and we're getting a lot of orders. You know, we sold over 4,500 mouthpieces in 8 years.
Wow.
Incredible.
All
wow.
over the world. And they're copies of what the old guys played, you know, like what Coltrane or Miles, you know, famous musicians played on stuff. And then when they died, companies, they all went out of business, and the new ones were never as good, a lot of them, as the old one. But we have an engineer that knew how to copy things from my collection from all the wheeling and dealing. So it's called retro revival, meaning we're reviving retro stuff.
It is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now I got a guy complaining that he didn't get the tracking number to go to Sweden, and the package is sitting on my porch because the DHL driver didn't show up, which is very unusual. So I'm not answering any. So this is the type of thing that I get half the day. And then the money is good. So, like, then sometimes it's dead, and when it gets dead, I'm going, oh, that's it, it's over. It's either feast or famine.
Yeah.
You know, and
Wow.
so I hope Al gets a big hit because, you know, he'll probably wind up doing more because I think a lot of happiness is around the corner. Right now, the world is in a very dark place, and I'm older, and I've seen the worst, and this is the worst ever. You have to be happy,
Yeah.
you know, and Al has always just been an off-the-wall kind of guy. When you look back at all of the stuff he did, he's the real deal. He's a character, you know.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
He's a one of a kind. I don't know. He was always on that radio show, I think. The
Dr. Demento, I'm sure you're talking about.
Dr. Demento,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a real deal.
Yeah, so it sounds like Weird Al got you back into the studio for Polkamania. That's amazing. Yep.
You know, it got me. I just got the bug, and I'm working on the whole hardest thing about it is I bought so many. I have so much material and pictures and stuff that every time I would get another hard drive, I would have to copy it to a new hard drive. You know, we're talking about 2, 4, 6 gigabytes or bigger. And now that I have to look back, I have folders within folders within folders of the same thing.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
like it's taken me weeks just trying to sort it out and get it in order. Because there's nothing worse when someone comes over to work on some music and you can't find anything. I'm paying them $50 an hour.
To watch you sort through stuff.
Be ready. Yeah. And I'm only doing it for the love. And, you know, I'm doing half music with Mary Clayton. I've always dealt with her. We had a deal on a label. She sang the original part on Gimme Shelter with the Rolling Stones.
Mm.
She sang on all of the records with, on the A&M records with the songwriter. You know, she's like one of the most famous songwriters. And I got hooked up with her to get a record deal. So I really came out to be a star. And I got signed and was in a lot of groups, and none of them made it. They didn't get the first base. And that's when I started looking around thinking, you know, this is not going to be good. And Mike, my drummer friend, worked with the Beach Boys for like 25 years. You know, then I did a couple of tours in 2000, and, you know, I had a segment where Mike Love would say, this is Joel Peskin, and he played the sax on Kokomo. and on a couple of other records, California Dreamin' that they had out, and all of that. So I'm doing it as part R&B and things. Unfortunately, I'm not a polka guy. Otherwise, I would do a polka. And I don't know how Al comes up with the whole. It's amazing, how he can come up. He's a comic genius, really.
Yeah, I think you are a polka guy because you've been on a multiple Weird Al polkas, right?
I don't think I could do a polka from scratch.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah,
I probably could if he were helping me with some lyrics.
Well,
but no, somehow all of that started to make me miss recording, and I'll do my own recording because I've usually done a lot of stuff for myself too. A lot of musicians have stuff that they do because they love the music and the art, just for themselves. And no one makes money anymore. I think he said it kind of changed. Maybe he had to go into more memorabilia and things like that. I think with Spotify, maybe it changed. They don't make any money anymore, I don't think, right?
Yeah, that's what we keep hearing. It's a shame, but Dave and I, we're the hardcore ones. We're buying all the memorabilia. We buy all the physical copies. We
Good for you.
Go to all the tours. We support it. Well, we have some specific questions about your work with Al, so I think let's roll into those.
Go ahead, roll it up.
So, Joel, it sounds like really your introduction to Al was through Scotti Brothers.
If I have to remember, I think it was the recommend through Tony Papa or someone at Scotti Brothers because Jay Levy was kind of hooked in with them, and the word of mouth could have been through that portal, like 1984 or 85, right?
Yeah, and I think, they would have been recorded in late 83, so maybe even a little bit earlier.
Maybe even earlier, and it was done at their studio because they had a good studio. I remember the room. They had one nice big room there.
Now, it seems unique in your industry for someone like Al to use you once in the early 80s and then continue to use you for 40 years. Is that an uncommon thing?
Well, he knew. Well, he had Warren Looning, who passed away, and he got bladder cancer, and he did Dancing with the Stars. And he also had Jim Self, I think, play tuba, right? Jim Self.
Right.
Yep.
So we were named studio guys. Warren played the trumpet on all of these movies, and he played with Lawrence Welk for years.
Oh, wow.
And he was older than me, and he played in the Air Force band or the Army band, and he was a lot bigger name, and Jim Self was. So that's how it happened, as Al probably knew he needed to get top studio guys because they play good, they have a good sound, they show up, and they can read.
Yeah.
That we can read
Yeah.
music no matter how. I remember working with Al at One on One. That was another studio on Lancashire, and I couldn't play that fast. We spent hours. He had to slow it down. The polka was kind of very hard to play fast in that particular key, and then let alone double it.
Wow.
So now I'm getting a text from Home Shield that they're going to be spraying for mosquitoes, but I'm not going to answer them. Thank you very much. So just kill the encephalitis mosquitoes. Thank you. So that's really why. And I think Al just knew we were the best guys. And I think he's very loyal, and I'm the same way. And a lot of people that get in the music business will stick with somebody. I'm that kind of guy. I'm old school.
Yeah.
And I just have valor. And a lot of guys are always, like right now, after Warren died, Wayne Bergeron is playing, and he's like really famous. He plays with the Fat Band, and he goes tours all over. He does clinics. He does all of these movies. His career was mine was pretty hot there for about 30 years. It was before him. And I think other than that, I didn't know anybody else because we were just the wind guys, the trumpet, the clarinet, and the tuba, I believe, unless he used them on other songs. So I think for convenience and for loyalty, he just stuck with a good thing, which he was smart to do, because when people hear it, they would never know the difference because it's always going to sound good,
right?
Because he's the producer,
right?
So he's not going to let anything crappy get on the record ever, no matter how much time. And he took a lot of time with this, even when I did it, because he just makes sure he knows what he wants. He's done a lot. He's a seasoned professional, you know.
Yeah, we've had Wayne Bergeron on our podcast. Yes, he's got a very impressive career. We like Wayne a lot.
Oh, he's amazing. He's a fantastic trumpet player. Really, he's great.
Yeah.
Jim, I don't know. I'm not into tuba guys, so, you know. Because they go, ooh, 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 ooh. And the clarinet, I started on clarinet in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
You know, that was when mom took me to the Benson School of Music when I was in the 4th grade. Charles Levine gave me, she rented me a clarinet, and I got good right away. And I played for the class auditorium. I played a Benny Goodman thing in the 6th grade. Then I went into junior high, and I got the sax, and then I had the sax and the clarinet. So I always had the clarinet, but I played a lot more clarinet when I did studio work because you had to have a lot of different woodwinds for like episodic TV shows.
Okay.
You know, that were on all of these Knots Landing and all of these shows that were on, you know, every year for 20 years. They all had woodwinds and kind of semi-orchestral music. So that's where I was good as a rock and roll sax player that I've done like Kokomo, but I can play good. So, you know, he had the hip guys that could do what he wants, no matter what. That's what you want.
Yeah, that's interesting that you said that because I was curious because, I mean, you're definitely proficient in, you know, saxophone, flute, and other woodwinds. So I was wondering why Weird Al picked the clarinet for you when you could have played multiple different roles.
Well, he probably didn't even know. He probably said, I need a clarinet player. And, well, a lot of guys did a lot of stuff. The guys I work with played everything good. So I don't know how that recommend turned out. You know, I can't remember that far. I can't believe it's 83. Boy, unbelievable. That's a long time ago, man. So that's how I think that came about.
One thing I'm curious about is, you know, you were earlier describing sort of the recording process for Polkamania. You heard a demo. Al came to you with sheet music. I have to assume it wasn't necessarily the same process throughout these 40 years. Can you tell us a little bit about how that may have changed over time working with Al?
It was exactly the same, except in the earlier days before email, I would just go in the studio and wing it, you know?
Okay.
He didn't.
Oh, wow.
He didn't. I think he would send a cassette. Then he would send a CD, I think. But then as soon as email started, I always got a track and a part for as long as I can remember.
Oh, amazing.
Which he did on this one. He sent me an email, and he sent me a WAV file of the polka, and then he sent me the parts as a PDF, 2 parts, and then I printed it out, set up a music stand, and had it for 2 weeks because I can't just, you know, my phone is ringing with the business and all of that. Got the clarinet out, which I was rusty because I never played clarinet. I had 5 or 6 or 7 clarinets. You know what I mean? And which I love, but I'm just saying I would rather play the saxophone than the clarinet for myself. Yeah. And then I set up the music stands, got the music, and then I played the track. I hit go from the WAV file on the computer, had the clarinet in my hand, walked over 2 feet, and I started learning it. So I had it pretty well down. Then I went to the second part. So he did that for as long as I can remember until we had email in the 90s, I think, right? With AOL.
Right.
Sure.
And I don't really know. That I can't remember, but with regular email browsers and Netscape and all of that, he would know. He probably goes back on my computer about 12, 13 years. Mm-hmm. My oldest, I wonder what my oldest email is from him, from Weird Al. I'm going to look.
Okay.
It may not be that much. Why is it saying Allison Marino? Weird Al. So why I sell stuff, because I find stuff. I may have had a plaque made with him that I didn't get from him. Here's the Grammys. Thanks. Weird Al, 10/18. So he goes back on here to 2014.
Amazing. So yeah, at least 10 years you've been emailing back and forth with Weird Al.
I think it's hard to say.
That's great.
I probably erased it by now.
Right.
No, because I have emails that go through. When you star emails as your favorite, they'll last in the favorites for a long time. So there's a little start.
So, Joe, you've obviously worked with Weird Al on pretty much every one of the polkas.
I think it's every polka should be in the Guinness Book of Records. They should, with the Academy of the Grammys, for the most clarinet solos on a polka. And I played many Grammys. I was in the Grammy orchestra on TV a bunch of times as well.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I love that.
Or playing with a group. You know, they'd have groups come in. Maybe he'll do that. I hope this is a hit. It didn't come out yet, did it? Or is it coming out?
Yeah, it's been out, and it's a hit. Everyone loves it.
Where do you hear it? Because just online or on the radio?
Yeah, there's a great animated music video. We can definitely send it to you after the call.
Oh, so he did a video with it as well?
Yeah, there's a bunch of animators got together and split it up.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you'll love it.
Yeah.
That's nice.
You'll love it, yeah.
Yeah, send me the link. Really, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Well, I want to ask you a little bit about, Joel, I mentioned, you were on pretty much every one of the polkas, or every one of the polkas, but I do have in my notes, I have that you worked on the album Running with Scissors, which came out in 1999 on a track called Pretty Fly for a Rabbi. What can you tell us about that?
I don't remember anything about it.
Okay.
I kind of don't remember anything about any of the polkas. I'd have to hear it, then it would refresh my memory.
Yeah, that one wasn't a polka. That one was a parody of Pretty Fly for a White Guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I didn't know. Am I playing clarinet on it, though?
Yeah, clarinet.
I guess he just liked me only for my... You only like me for my clarinet. Oh, you don't love me. I don't remember anything. I barely remember. I would have to hear all his polkas to remember and hear... To get the flashback, really.
You're right.
It's so,
Yep.
It's very obscure, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's pretty safe to say if there's a clarinet on a Weird Al track, you were probably the one producing that.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess having a clarinet is synonymous with a polka, without a doubt. I hope he does another record. He only did a single, though, right?
Yeah, the latest Polkamania was just a single. Yeah, but every Weird Al fan is hoping that there'll be more music from Weird Al, whether it be additional singles or a brand new album at some point, we're hoping.
How many? Does he have a lot of fans?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, how many?
1, 2,
Is it a
3.
secret? 1, 2, 1. Well, you guys are stoked fans. I love it, man.
We're huge.
You have a lot
huge
of
fans.
You have a lot of. It's fantastic, really. He must love you.
Well, we certainly love Al, and I think he tolerates us.
Do you ever talk to him much?
Yeah, we definitely talk to him, especially at shows, or he's done a few things for the podcast with us.
Where is his fan club, though? Does he have? He does have thousands of people somewhere. Where do people have fan clubs? I don't, online.
Social media.
Everything's gone to social media, online now.
Followers, yeah. I mean, my business, I have 10,000 followers on Instagram and 10,000 followers just about on Facebook for my retro revival. So, yeah, I wasn't even thinking. Of course, that's where we have it.
Yep, and Al's got millions upon millions of followers on all of his social media. So he's doing quite well, and we love him, and we're so glad that you got to spend all that time with Weird Al in the studio.
I'm really happy I told you everything. It really, the precious moments I've had in the music business are really dear to me. And for him, one of the many of people, Streisand, she was going to come out of the woodwork and played the MGM Grand in 1994. I was with a whole orchestra, rehearsed for weeks in LA. Then we went to the hotel. It wasn't even built yet. And it was like new and old. And then I played with her again at the MGM Grand on New Year's Eve for the millennium. We did shows. We taped it. We played down in Anaheim, taped it. Then I went to Australia with her for a month. We did Sydney and the other big one. And then I got in trouble with her on one thing because, not really, but I'm a troublemaker. My friend Bob Tricarico played on all the old Frank Sinatra records. A lot of the older studio guys, and Warren was part of that. had a digital camera, and we were in this big stadium, Wembley or whatever it was in the first city. What's the biggest in Sydney? We played it, and it was raining. But at a rehearsal, he gave me a Sony camera, and he said, "When you have a minute," he was in the row above me. We had this big giant stage that they built. So I stood up with the camera and zoomed in. And right when I zoomed in, she turned around and looked right at me. She says, "Oh no, don't do that in front of the whole orchestra." She said, "Not unless I get some makeup on." But she wasn't known to be that nice, actually.
Oh.
In a way, like she had candy out for the whole rehearsal down in Manhattan Beach, California, and she hid the M&M peanuts because she couldn't stop eating them, and meanwhile everybody wanted them. And she said, "I had to put them away." Well, can she sing? And we made a lot of money with her. She paid top dollar, a contractor. We did the record. We went to it was amazing, and that was before 9/11, so it was nice to go to Australia, before all of that stuff with the planes, and you know what I mean. It was cool then. Now they got you have to have that. They have to sniff you with guard dogs to make sure you're not sneaking a clarinet into the country to do a Barbra Streisand polka. I'm just saying, you can have a Barbra Streisand Al Yankovic polka. I'll produce it. So anyway, you guys are amazing. Really, I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You guys, you're really on point. I tip my hat.
Thank you.
Really.
Thank you, Joel.
Looking at some of the credits for Weird Al's songs, it does seem that on one of the polkas, the Bohemian polka, you are listed as playing the baritone saxophone.
Oh, maybe so. Wow, really? I have to dig it up. Hang on. Bohemian. You think it's on YouTube?
It's definitely on YouTube. It's called Bohemian Polka off of Alapalooza.
Yeah, it's the one where the lyrics are the Bohemian Rhapsody from Queen.
Say that again. That's crazy.
Yeah, the lyrics to the polka are just Bohemian Rhapsody from Queen, set to polka music.
Wow. Hang on, I got to mute.
Whoa there. They're getting a
What is going on?
What a play. Grammarly is an AI.
Where does this come from?
Helps you make your point.
And watch her finesse still. She's adjusting the tone.
Wait, because it's a commercial.
Well, look at that, Jill. It really sounds like her. No substituting.
Where did I...
They're
I
giving
can't find it now.
Now, Ellis is using Grammarly to summarize the important...
I have so many tabs. No, I do. It's insane.
Meeting is still on the clock. Can they beat
What did I do with it?
Bazinga?
Hang on a minute. This is nuts.
Download Grammarly.
I don't know where it's playing. Can you wait a minute and let me find it?
Yeah, that's fine.
What is going on? This is nuts. Here it is. Jesus.
It's just fantasy.
I saw this years ago.
Open your eyes, look up to the skies and see. Till the man,
I'm probably going boop, 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 boop. But the bass does that too.
Yeah.
He didn't show the credits of the musicians. It'll probably be on All Music. All Music has all the credits for everything everybody did. Got faster. You see how fast that is?
Yeah,
Hard to play.
I can imagine.
I don't really hear the Barry. It's mixing back a little bit. Probably doing boop, 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 boop. That's what usually it does. Because the baritone is a big sax.
In the liner notes for Alapalooza, the album that song is on, it has you listed both playing the clarinet and the baritone sax. So I'm assuming it's in there. I don't think he would have pulled it out.
No, it actually, I'm sure it's just low. The baritone is a big sax. That's why it sounds like a tuba almost. So it's probably on the bottom of the track. They don't want the instruments too loud, because the vocal has to be the star.
Yeah, it's all got to work together.
Sometimes they mix the sax back low, and it's frustrating. It's like, where's my saxophone solo? I spent 5 hours doing another take, you know? So,
Joel, your career with Weird Al is very impressive. We're so happy that you're on
Thank
all the
you.
polkas, and we hope that as Weird Al continues to do more and more polkas, he continues to invite you back to play clarinet, and maybe he'll even dive in now that he knows you play sax and flute and some other instruments. Maybe you'll get
I
featured
hope
on
so. I'll bring
another
all
instrument.
my horns down for only $9.99. You too can play on a clarinet polka.
There you go.
Well, you know, being a professional and doing this for a living, you don't realize this guy is so different than anybody else. It's really amazing. Really. Totally unique thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's brilliant, and I don't think he was a dorky guy. He's just very highly intelligent. You know, it's very brilliant. I guess he was kind of an accordion player, right, to begin with.
Yeah, he still plays accordion for sure.
So there you go. That what else are you going to do? And you know, Myron Florin, he was the accordion on Lawrence Welk show. Hey man, the accordion's been around since Italy.
Yeah.
You know, back to Sorrento.
Right.
You know, the accordion. Anyway.
I think once you play the accordion, is pretty much a requirement that you do at least one polka every album or so.
I think so. That's a tradition. It gives them good luck.
Joel, your resume is so impressive, and I think we could spend hours talking about everything that you've done. But the one that jumped out at me, which surprised me, was that you play the sax on the charity single "We Are the World." Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. I played on track number 2.
Oh, incredible.
I have the platinum record. It's right after We Are the World. I played on the second song. I have it hanging in my bathroom. I got called to do a session in Sherman Oaks when they were doing this, and the song is called, with Steve Perry, It's Only for the Moment. And a very famous songwriter wrote that, and I love Steve Perry. I can't see the name on the record, but actually that thing sold like 3 million copies. Here, probably sold 10 million.
Wow.
And I did that for this at this studio that did a lot of hit records in Sherman Oaks, California. And then the funny thing is that I was in North Hollywood at a market, a Whole Foods market or whatever, and Steve Perry came out, and I recognized him because a friend of mine knew him. And he brought Steve to a session because I think Steve was in the program. You know, he had some problems with drugs. So my friend was a very famous studio piano player, and he was with him. So maybe this is my own interpretation. So he remembered me.
Wow.
And we hung out for about a half an hour, and now he's got some fantastic new tracks out, you know, from the last 3 or 4 years. And he's like one of that record is almost the biggest selling record other than Africa by Toto. You know, the one that, what did Journey have? What was the name of it?
Don't Stop Believing.
Don't Stop Believing.
Don't Stop Believing. Those are like mega. I think Africa got over 1 billion hits somewhere or plays on you. I'm not sure.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah, I was called to do that. But that was a separate track that they used as a filler because We Are the World was the main event. I wasn't part of that. They had all of the famous, you know, Cyndi Lauper and Bop Bop Bop. And then the composer, someone got wind of me. A lot of people, Manhattan Transfer, you know, I was around, and other sax players were around as well, but they were doing so many records. It's not like that anymore. And the sax is very popular in smooth jazz, not in jazz. It's more of a cult in jazz. It's very small compared to what it used to. The smooth jazz like Dave Koz and Kenny G and all of that stuff, that's very popular. But records, they don't sell anymore. You just get videos and groups go out and play, you know, and it's just a whole, although there's always someone recording. I'm not saying there's none, you know, but not the same. So I got the best years, and guys with Frank Sinatra got even better years back in the day, you know, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. I have no complaints. It did me good. Very proud.
Yeah, Joel, your resume is impressive.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man.
People should definitely check it out. I mean, everybody from, Frank Zappa, the Beach Boys.
That was another one. I recorded all of those parts in the bathroom. We did those four parts in the men's room.
Incredible.
At the studio on Santa Monica Boulevard. And you ever hear of Moog synthesizers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very fit. Robert Moog was there. But the only drag about Frank Zappa, they never paid on time. You had to almost take them to the union. They were a drag.
Oh, man.
Frank was shit. Yeah, he was a bum. I got sick a lot of times. I did a lot of slave labor.
Yeah.
I played the saxophone on Being With You by Smokey Robinson when I was poor. And I bought a rocking chair that I got at Goodwill in Canoga Park, where I live in California. And this producer was producing all of these big artists and stuff, and he was a thief, George Tobin. He had a big Rolls Royce parked outside. His kid was such a little bitch that one time he asked me for $5, and he was 5 years old, and it's like, well, 50 cents will be okay. He asked me if I had $5. For real. So I was rocking in my chair, and George called and said, Peskin, what are you doing? And it's like, nothing. I don't even have air conditioning. I'm broke, and I'm rocking, and my wife is breastfeeding the baby or whatever. So he says, "Can you come down? I'm producing Smokey." So I said, well, "Yeah." Meanwhile, the money was in union. A lot of these stuff, like Kokomo, was on a union contract because I made them put it on a union contract, just like Al's, because then if they use it again, you get paid. So Kokomo got in a movie and got on a record, and I just got money from Canada for like $238 because they used Kokomo in a sitcom in Canada. So little over since 1988. So I went down there, and Smokey wasn't even there. And so the engineer said, "I want you to work with my buddy, Mike Piccirillo, who produced a lot of those records." He was the real producer. George was the wheeler and dealer, the gangster. So right away, he says he wants me to play like Baker Street. You remember that song, Baker Street?
Yeah.
So that Baker Street was a giant hit, and it had the sax. And every time I would work for this guy, George Tobin, he wanted the sax up high. So he leaves and then has me do the slave labor with Mike Piccirillo. So as soon as George leaves, I go, shit, how am I going to get out of this mess? He's picky. I'll be here for hours. I don't like that. I don't like that. Can you do it? And he also had spied into the studio. He had like a hidden mic and a camera.
Oh, wow.
So, which I got hit to. So if you said George is which he was, and he would be the type of guy you would tell him. And so what happens is I played that solo, and it's almost like Baker Street. It's almost like Kokomo. They're all a derivative of Baker Street. That song was the sax player changed music kind of, and I got in on that because I could do it even better. And then what happened is he wrote me a check for $200, and we got in a big fight. It didn't go through the union, and it was a giant hit. And how many times when Smokey did Dancing with the Stars, I said, "Man, I played sax on your record, in 1980," and he loved it. Then he lives where I live. I met him at Ralph's supermarket. He lives up in my area, up in the hills, in the big mansion, and I met him there. We hung out for about a half an hour, and I told him, and all I got was $200 and 2 gold records that I have on the wall. And that record, I would have been paid probably 50 times for it.
Right.
But I was poor. So every time George would call, he would go, "Peskin, what are you doing?" And I'd be in the rocking chair broke. "Well, nothing."
Wow.
That's how I started. Slave labor. He did the same thing with Natalie Cole. He produced her. He produced the Young Hearts, all of these records. And I got badass by doing that.
Yeah.
And then Entertainment Tonight really helped. But I wasn't as much into the records. Taylor Dane, Michael Bolton, Marvin Gaye, a lot of good stuff. So knock on wood, I'm very proud.
Joel, thank you so much for joining us, telling us all about your incredible career and working with Al all these years. We can check you out on Instagram at iReedMan, ReedMan, and on Facebook with Retro Revival. And we can find you online at retro-revival.com for all things saxophone. Joel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Have a beautiful week. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for that super fun interview, Joel Peskin.
Be sure to check out retro-revival.com. And while you're there, you might as well pick up some mouthpieces and saxophones.
This episode is brought to you in part by Discover Darwin, promoting tourism in Darwin, Minnesota. Not only is historic Darwin, Minnesota beautiful, it's also fascinating.
Rumor has it that someone featured in the Emmy-winning 2022 blockbuster Weird the Al Yankovic Story will be visiting Darwin, Minnesota later this month.
That's right, reports are coming in that tough biker number 8 himself is set to be visiting Darwin and hobnobbing with Darwin, Minnesota Mayor Josh Johnson.
Traffic is sure to be overwhelmed with the additional vehicle in town due to his visit, so we are cautioning residents to stay home and get your groceries earlier than usual to avoid delays.
We also urge residents of Darwin, Minnesota to behave properly if you happen to run into this celebrity visitor. No eye contact, say please and thank you, and do not request any personal photos or autographs.
So visit Darwin, Minnesota on your next celebrity visitation. Discover Darwin, more than just the twine ball. And after you visit Darwin, Minnesota, be sure to attempt to visit www.discoverdarwin.biz.
David Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast is brought to you absolutely free thanks to our incredible sponsors, Burrito, Wizard Burger, our very own Jackson Scoggins, Discover Darwin, and our very own Kenneth Crazy Ken Gwinnett. Our podcast is also supported by everyone else in our Patreon family, with special thanks to our very own close personal friend level Patreon supporters, Scotto Brothers, Zeb, Allison, Dana B, and Beaker, UH Jeff, Adriana Banana Yugovich, Casey Killingsworth, Javier, Blair, Ajax, Kev Messick, Zach Casper, Weird's Dream Date Nancy, Yanko Chick 38, Matt T, Devlin, Ron. Also thanks to KC, Jason Alchill, Jeff McClelland, Aaron 3D Henry, and Tugas Rose 27, as well as everyone else in our Pretty Stinkin' Majestic Patreon family.
If you enjoy our Pretty Stinkin' Majestic Weird Al podcast, as heard in the Weird the Al Yankovic Story commentary track, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/2000inch. There are awesome benefits like getting your name read on the podcast, your own private RSS feed, which gives you early access to each and every bonus episode, and the self-satisfaction of doing something important with your otherwise pitiful, meaningless existence. And don't forget to check out our official merchandise, such as the Gill and Chillos as seen in the Charlie Puth Show, over at shop.2000inch.com. All proceeds from purchases go directly towards supporting our fine podcast.
We love hearing from our listeners and other Weird Al fans, so be sure to join our Facebook community over at group.2000inch.com and visit our Discord server for even more riveting Weird Al and Red Rump the Goody related conversations. You can find both of them linked on our website, as well as information about past episodes and guests over at 2000inch.com or weirdalpodcast.com.
Keep up on new episodes, podcast news, and events by following at 2000inch on Facebook, X, Threads, and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe everywhere you listen to podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. Not only does subscribing help the podcast, in the great pork roll versus Taylor ham debate, you will learn it should correctly be called Taylor ham.
That's right. Plus, we also love it when we receive voicemail via our official patent-pending 27-hour-a-day podcast hotline, 347 Spatula, as seen in the Illustrated Al, the Songs of Weird Al Yankovic. That number is 347-772-8852. Give it a call or a text, and you might even hear your message in a future episode.
Thank you once again to Joel Peskin for joining us this episode. We'd also like to thank Jeff Nucera, Chloe, Jill Hinton, Matt Kelly and Matthew Milligan from the Weird Algorithm Podcast, Joey Slater, our very own Claire Walsh, Matt Horn, Owen Watson, Mike Minnick, Adrian Vasquez, Jackie Rossi, Bob Groder, Aaron Henry, my mom, Brad Sherwood, Colin Mockery, Kate Pritchard, Zeb Lemke, Adriana Yugovich, Vicky DeVries, Rhymes with Cheese, and the very helpful Weird Al VIP customer service representative.
Thank you to the Grammy Award-winning Jim Kimo West for our incredible podcast theme song. And thank you to Weird Al Yankovic, as this podcast probably would not exist without him. Thank you also to John Bermuda Schwartz, Steve J., Ruben Valtierra, Jay Levy, and the irreplaceable Joe Jaffa. And a big thank you to all of you, our loyal listeners, subscribers, Patreon supporters and sponsors, and everyone else who makes our podcast possible.
Thank you for choosing Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast. And until next time, remember to gill and chill, keep listening to Weird Al, and stay cheesy.
Okay, so we know who 2 of the 4 new players on the tour are.
Right, Monique and Peyton.
And we know that Weird Al's 4 band members are returning.
Right. Bermuda, Steve, Jim, and Ruben have all posted that they're on the 2025 tour.
All right, so if we go in order, that means Bermuda is band member number 1, Steve is number 2, Kimo is number 3, Ruben is number 4, Monique is number 5, Peyton is number 6. So we're just missing number 7 and number 8.
You don't think it couldn't be?
Being in Al's band is a tough job, and I mean, I don't know anyone who would be more qualified to be number 7 and number 8.
Plus, we're already going to be at most of the shows anyway.
All right, you know what we need to do now.
Yes, we'll turn on our ringers and we'll put on our special manifesting underpants.
That was Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 245-inch.
Wait, do we even know how to play anything?
Da 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 da.